you want to get him one? Thank you.
And just remember, Joe, that anything you whisper will be, I mean, you are like right on the
Yeah.
speaker.
The speaker is right behind your right ear.
So,
So if you burp,
For now,
everybody hears it.
we're gonna record, but fart things don't.
well, hopefully, yeah,
No pressure.
that's all it is, right?
Okay.
No.
Yeah, there's extras. I don't know where she put them. They're up on the shelf, the ledge.
Yeah, I know she's got some. Almost there. I'm watching the time.
Oh, I see, okay.
This is the longest one. Okay. Notice is hereby given to the public and news media pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.84 that a regular meeting of the Shelter School Board will be held on Wednesday, December 9th, 2020, commencing at 6:30 PM in the boardroom. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. The meeting will be live streamed via the school YouTube channel. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Public comments can be made by phone by dialing 608-965-4427, extension 3333 at the appropriate point listed on the agenda. If you prefer, email your public comments to euling@schellsburg.k12.wi.us and he will read them during the meeting.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ewing,
Here.
Teasdale,
Here.
Gill,
Here.
Ray,
Here.
Canal,
Here.
Andrews, Russell.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to declare the meeting?
So
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And turn this over to Mark for positive news for the Schultzburg School District.
Okay, we have a few things, and I'm gonna add one, so letter D will show up, but our esports team, I talked to Mr. Brooks Duck Bowers, who's leading our esports team, and asked for some information, because I haven't seen all their competitions or heard of everything they've done, but the varsity Overwatch team is undefeated and second overall in both their conference and division. I assume Overwatch is a specific game. I don't know anything about it. The JV team has had most of theirs rescheduled, so they're currently 0-1. The Smash team is now 3-2. He went on to comment that a lot of students that are involved in esports are performing better academically because they're now held to a standard they weren't before. And the last thing was the varsity Overwatch game that they had on Wednesday of last week was broadcast by the Wisconsin High School Esports Association president himself. So we're getting our name out there, and the kids are having a good time with it. Girls and boys basketball, more girls than boys right now. They seem to be handling all the schedule changes. I mean, there might be some that disagree with that, but we're trying to do our best. I just heard of another team in our area that's had to shut down for a couple of weeks. It's just the nature of what's going on right now. But it's very fluid. If you are a part of it, it's just every half hour it changes, or even more so. We did get school lunches, they being delivered by Minor Transportation. So that's a good thing. That increased our school lunches by about 40 per day. So that was good. And then the last one I didn't have information on until just yesterday. The track team ended up conference champs for the fall season, I believe it's called. So congratulations to all of our activities that are going on.
Track team, right? I was trying to figure out what.
Track.
I'm getting here at 8.
T-R-A-P.
I'm getting here at 8, so I'm sorry.
Hey, I got them.
I'm getting them.
Get the Bluetooth ones.
I will ask you about them. Give me a second, sorry.
All right, thanks, Mark. Next, we're up to recognition of the public who wish to address the board, and I'm aware of one person here who would like to address us. Jody.
Well, thanks for letting me address you tonight. My name's Joe Diedrich. I'm here to represent the Shullsburg Rescue Squad. And I guess it's more good news. We'd like to thank you for continuing your tradition of supporting the Shullsburg Rescue Squad. I know when Scott Machi was on staff here, he would respond to calls. I know when I was on staff here, I was allowed to respond. And back in, it's not quite a year, I came up here to school. Dan Splan and I came up here. We had a very generous person in the community donate some funds toward paying for the class. We had an EMT class that we could hold here in the area because our numbers are, as any other rescue squad, you're always struggling to find members. And so Dan and I came up here, and Dana, we asked her if we could address the students and the staff and just to encourage them to maybe, participate and become a member of the Shullsburg Rescue Squad. Well, with the whole things that all occurred after that, we weren't even sure if that class was going to go on. And well, lo and behold, it did. And so recently that class was wrapped up, and you have a member of your staff here, Mr. Strang, Tim, that I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag on him or not, but he did pass all his tests, and I do believe he is a full-fledged EMT now. So you have a lot to be proud of there. And I have, when the pager goes off during the day, it's not always easy to get a crew, and Tim has responded to several calls that's really helped us out. He's been on a few calls with me during the day, and it's not only him, it's your administration, it's your fellow teachers that are willing to pitch in and cover his classes when he has to go. And Shane, I say his last name, but I probably say it wrong, the art teacher here, he also took the class. He completed the EMR portion, and he can currently drive with the ambulance. In fact, he went on a call the other day, and it was his first time behind the wheel. I actually let him drive on the way back. I don't know if any of you have driven an ambulance before, but sometimes I think it's a little bit more responsibility driving that ambulance down the road than it is actually being in the back of the patient. You got a lot to worry about. But anyhow, we as a Shullsburg Rescue Squad really appreciate the fact that we have a school district here in town that really supports us and knows the importance of being able to respond to people when they have medical issues that arise. It can be really a lot of stress on people, especially this time of the season and with things going on now, but you've got some really outstanding staff members here and administration and even the board here for what you guys do. It's not easy at being in your shoes now. I don't have any answers for you. Don't ask me any questions. I'm just here to say thank you, okay? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
And I'm not gonna hang around, but I'm gonna get out of here, okay? Thank you, guys. Good job. I know I could, but you guys look so wonderful, and I had a speaker right now.
Next is our consideration of consent agenda. And before we get into that, I have two changes that I'd like to propose. One is item 9A2, which is consideration of an action on additional compensation for teachers fulfilling junior high special ed responsibilities. I'd like to strike that from the agenda. And on item 8, I'd like to include item I, which is consideration of esports co-op. And so if we can, with those changes, not sure, do we need to have a separate motion then to approve the new agenda? All right, well, let's, I guess if we can do the approval of the agenda, and then we can do the consent for the other 3 items there.
I would make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. And then if we get back to our consent agenda item, and that is approving the minutes from the regular board meeting of November 11, approval of the minutes from the special board meeting on 11/23, and approval of payment and of payroll and vouchers.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We are up to number 8, business, and the first item is consideration of an action on purchase of iPads, Chromebooks, and ClearTouch interactive panels using previously donated funds.
So at an earlier board meeting, we had accepted a donation of $30,000 with the intent of spending it on technology. And so we have ordered some of these things with the intent to spend it on technology like the donor wanted it to. The reason why I put it on the agenda right now, none of these things were to come in. The Chromebooks we ordered back in early September because they told us they wouldn't be here until March. They showed up last week. So I wanted to get this on here to make sure that we're, even though we're donated funds and they were earmarked, I believe by policy, anything over $5,000 needs to go through the board. So Dana got a quote for some ClearTouch panels, and I had budgeted an amount that we had gotten ClearTouch panels in the past for, and actually she got a quote for 2 panels, and we were able to get 4 panels and a cart for like $200 more than what I had budgeted for. So that's a great thing. And then the iPads, I think the iPads may be here already, or at least they're in transit. So,
I'll make the motion. Second.
Ewing,
Yes.
Gil,
Yes.
Teasdale,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Canal,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Motion carries. Next is consideration of an action on the 2021-22 course description.
In your packet is the course description handbook that we would like to propose to you. Every year, we allow staff members a couple of weeks to make new proposals, change, edit how they see fit, and then we go through and talk to them about their changes, talk about how it would fit into the master schedule, and this is what we came up with. You'll see there's very little edits outside of the physical education and health section. So if you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask.
There's a typo on the front page, just FYI. Before it goes out to the student,
Where is it?
you have 2019-20 in the very top.
Oh.
The
oh, the second
Oh, I
page.
see. Thanks, yep.
Okay.
And then the second line too.
Okay, thank you.
I just don't want like.
We must have missed that last year too.
And they all registered.
I'll just reiterate my previous stance from last year is that I don't oppose anything being in the book. I may oppose things that we may look at based on budgetary issues. But I have no problem with us seeing what the students are most interested in.
Right, so what we do is pending your approval on the board level, then we would prepare some sort of, whatever that looks like, day and presentation of these courses to our students. They will all register before Christmas. And we will have those, hopefully have those preliminary numbers all compiled for you for the January meeting. And that's when we start the discussion of what we actually are going to be able to offer our students based on their interests.
On discussion, I'll make a motion to accept the proposal.
Okay.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Motion carries. Thanks for working on that. Next is item C, which is report on violent threat drill conducted on November 19, 2020 as required per Act 142.
Go ahead. I submitted to the DOJ
Yeah,
care file, but you
so
write it up.
We
so.
were required to hold a threat drill prior to the turn of the year. And so it looked a little different this year, and we followed the regulations that were given to us through DPI in terms of when we had virtual learners and in-person learners. So with our virtual learners, our teachers were instructed to go through a case scenario that we presented with the students that were in the building. And so they had that discussion during their advisory time. The drill went really well. I'm always in awe of how quickly the teachers can rally in the students to barricade rooms and the creative ways they do that. The one glitch, not all the classrooms heard the all call for the clear. So as we're going around checking to make sure every student's okay, nobody was really scared by the drill. We actually had to relieve a couple of them from their hiding spots. They were so quiet. I was extremely impressed with the students and staff and how they handled themselves during the drill.
And if you read it, there's it read off it said Mr. Thurston's room,
Yep.
because I haven't had time to go back through and reprogram all the different rooms and numbers. And our teachers didn't get their texts, and they didn't get a couple other things because we got rid of School Messenger.
And that's where
everything was linked to our wave system, so I've got to work on that
we
too.
have some tech issues that we need to
Right,
work
but
out.
everybody, I mean, if you hear the alarm, it's obvious,
Mhm.
you know, whether you get the text or not, but those are all things that need to be brought up to speed and something that I've got to go back through and change.
Thanks, it sounds like it was very well done. Next is item D, which is consideration of an action on virtual instruction / teacher preparation on Fridays during in-person instruction weeks.
Dana came to me with this concern, presented the idea of predominantly because our teachers are teaching some students. When we come back, there will be students in person and in the classroom. And she presented it to me, and I put it on the agenda, and Eugene agreed to it being on the agenda just because I thought it had some merit. I'm not saying this is exactly what the school should do, but I'll let Dana explain herself more concisely.
So what I've been finding as I work through classrooms and talk with teachers is that preparing for both students that are here and learning remotely, basically, or virtually if they've been quarantined, the planning for that takes a lot of extra time, and giving constructive feedback to the students takes a considerable amount of their time. And if you recall, we do have some staff members that do have 7 class periods a day with 6 different preps. So it is very cumbersome and time consuming for them to prepare. I guess I operate on the philosophy of I would rather have those 4 days and my teachers be prepared and on their A game and have that Friday to prep for those rather than them flying by the seat of their pants every day trying to prepare. I went through and tallied up the total number of teachers we have. I believe it is 34. Don't hold me to that number, but I do my best to count. And I also went through and broke down those remote learners that have chosen that option and how many teachers, just those kids alone without the quarantining affect. And it is 29 out of 34 of our staff, our teachers. Now, mind you, that may only be 1 or 2 classes per teacher, but for some of those teachers, it's their entire day. And so with all of that, I thought, how do we give our teachers some time to better prepare? Knowing that if we do come back into person, the quarantining thing is inevitable at some point in time. So this was a way that hopefully our teachers would get some time to prepare and give feedback. They would still hold that morning check-in. They would still be able to hold AP courses just as we are with the virtual learning right now. So they would be allowed to have small group work if they really want to do some added interventions with some of those kids on Fridays, they would be able to do so.
How did it work out? Have you heard feedback from did students schedule times with the teachers on Fridays?
I think it was on the other way. I think a lot of teachers reached out to the students and met with them.
Okay.
I know that it was a good day for staff members to collaborate on their virtual learning and their lesson plans and their tech that they're using, so it allowed for that as well.
Yeah, I heard a lot of teachers were very happy to have that time because doing the dual planning is kind of a nightmare.
It is added work.
Yeah, I also heard they very much appreciated that consideration and the extra time that it takes to do all that additional type of prep, so.
I do want to also add that I fully understand the inconvenience of the family life because I'm living that personally. However, I'm prepared for our teachers and I'm prepared to go to bat for them that this time really is necessary when they're doing both models. It really is. So if the board would so choose to bring the kids back next week, then I would recommend giving the Fridays as they are during our virtual learning time.
What's that do for our getting their minutes in or whatever you call for?
We're gonna file for a
We're
waiver
going to need to
anyway.
file for a waiver.
Well, that would be like a teacher in service.
It would be, but the students would still want to check in and touch
Right.
base with their teachers in the morning. And we can change
That's
that.
the part I was gonna say is I agree with it. I think the teachers need it. The part whether or not we go virtual or if we go back in class is I don't agree with the kids having to check in.
Sure.
I actually received complaints from parents about that, is that students having to check in on a day that they really don't have school, especially for those students who are getting good grades, that didn't have to meet with their teachers, that everything's turned in. Some parents misunderstood it,
Mhm.
didn't check in.
Yep.
Had concerns with that. So that was one of the complaints that I was hearing from parents is if my kid is doing everything, their grades are good, they don't have to meet with that teacher, why do they have to then get up and check in?
I actually am opposed to this idea. I think everything that I've proposed in the past has been to try to eliminate our students being out on times. I know that seems counterproductive to actually what I've said before. However, I don't think that it does a service, especially to our elementary school families. When we are now asking people who don't necessarily work in our community or only live in our community, don't work, now we have to have them find daycare on those Fridays for those elementary school kids. Everything that I had proposed before was try to eliminate us pulling kids out or pulling students out at the last minute. I know this isn't the last minute because we're going to say that it's every Friday, but I have a very difficult time as a representative of the taxpayers saying that we are not having school regularly on that Friday. Nothing against the teachers. I get that it's incredibly difficult. I know that very personally. But at some point, we have to educate the kids. I'm prepared to come back next week. I'm prepared to say that we come back 1 week late after Christmas. And then I'm prepared to say that we don't do anything until the end of the year unless we're forced to. Everything that we've done preemptively has been, I think, in the right, but I don't support this. And I could be the only one, that's fine. But I don't believe it's in the best interest of our elementary school students in particular. I don't think it's in the best interest of our elementary school parents. I have a totally different opinion as it relates to junior high and high school because they can take care of themselves. But the elementary school students cannot. And we have people who are potentially going to lose their jobs if we don't have an alternative for them. And I don't want to say look at school as a daycare, but we've all been there in that sense. And I don't look at our teachers in any capacity as daycare providers. But I strongly disagree with this at this time.
I guess I'm concerned when I heard in the first statement was daycare, because that is, I think for the appropriate rationale that the teachers need that prep time to conduct classes virtually and in school, however it may be. I don't think that that's our primary focus as a district to make sure that it's a daycare component. I think the quality of the education is most important, and that those teachers need that time to deliver the best quality lesson plans and classes, then I think it should be consistent throughout the district.
But we were told at the beginning of this that we were supposed to be seamless. We were supposed to be able to go right from one to the other because there's students going to be in and out. And if we haven't adjusted at this point to being seamless after 4 months, that's a failure of us. And yes, I use the word daycare because it's the easiest way to express. In no capacity do I believe that our teachers are daycare providers. But it would be wrong for us to not at least understand that there's plenty of members of our community who rely on us not only for education, but also for their daycare of their children, right or wrong. And if we don't do that, there are people in this community who are going to lose their jobs. That is my concern. I understand that why we shut down and when we shut down is to avoid because of the pandemic. But in this situation, we have had 4 months at this point to try to come up with a system to work. There are other schools that are making it work. I'm okay if we have to do a Friday every 2 or 3 weeks to let it like we did a couple weeks ago with the elementary school teachers because they were overwhelmed is not the right word, but they needed a reprieve because of the in and out. But for us to say it's every Friday, I just disagree with. And I can be the only one, that's fine. But I have to at least make my point.
The way I understand it, other schools are doing 1 day.
Some of them are. I mean, I know
Some schools are doing early release every day.
there's ways to look, not all of them, there's some that aren't doing anything. There are some that are off every Friday. I mean, some that are counting.
If we choose to come back next week, I foresee there being more students not returning. And that means that the teachers are going to need more prep time for those kids who are doing virtual or more remote learning. And unless, I've heard teachers that are here on Sunday, they're here at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night doing this. So I understand that it's bad for the parents, for some of them, but we also have to think about the teachers, and we can't expect them to work 14, 16-hour days to prep all of that. It also would give us an extra day for cleaning.
Good point.
But we're supposed to be seamless. The idea was that we're supposed to be able to do whatever we do flows from this right to online. And if we haven't adjusted, that's on us.
I don't think it's about the seamless, because we have teachers that are seamless. They're still doing it. I think it's about the excessive workload associated with having students in one place and students in the other, and trying to coordinate that. And I guess as an example, I'll use our own school board meetings and how disjointed they can be when you have one person at home or two people at home and the others here. It just doesn't flow. And I think that's what it's about. I get your point. I get everybody's point. And I think you can make a decision to try it, a Friday here, a Friday there, if you don't want to do it every Friday. My wife works as a teacher. I know maybe you don't need that input, but they have every Friday. They check in, they do this, and they prep, because she has half her kids in the building and half the kids at home. And it's very, very stressful for her. And I just support her. And I don't know if everybody has that support, and we are just trying to show that.
I think
So
part of
I think it's seamless, because we're going in and out all the time. Kids are leaving quarantine and whatever. It's not about that. It's just the physical and mental exhaustion with trying to coordinate all that and keep everybody engaged. And I think we're at times failing at that. I would agree, because it's really difficult to keep everybody engaged. And I totally get the elementary. And if we could open a daycare, I would, but not during a pandemic.
Right. I think part of it for me too is, it'd be one thing if everyone was online or everyone was in school. But when you're typing 3 groups of people, because you got the people in school, you have the people at home, and then you have the ones kind of going in and out because they're quarantined, they're not. So you're doing 3 separate plans here. My other thing is, I agree with the Friday thing. I don't know if it has to be every Friday or every other Friday. I'm still kind of on the fence on that. But I think it also allows students, especially in the junior high and high school and elementary, time to meet with teachers, because they are not getting that one-on-one time when they're online.
They're not getting it in person because they can't really travel.
Right.
We've limited so much.
So
of what
there
they
is
can do.
none of that one-on-one time. If they have a question, if they have, they can be raising their hand on Zoom or on Google Meet or whatever, and it can show as a slide, but if the teacher's talking to a kid in the classroom, they're not seeing that. So it allows kids time to meet with teachers, meet with, just for that extra step of help that they normally would have got if they were sitting in the classroom. Or, and I think it's helping catch up some of these students that are struggling. I have a kid that absolutely hates online school. Absolutely hates it.
As do I.
Absolutely hates it. But he met with a couple teachers on Friday, and magically they gave him tips and hints and, different stuff. And now his grades are a little better because he had that time to sit and talk to them.
If I may make a suggestion, I think this would be something to maybe revisit. I don't think it's necessary for this upcoming Friday because we have 7.5 days of school. I think let's go this whole week and then have our 2.5 days. And then there's other things to discuss on the agenda after that. And I think it's something that the board could revisit based on feedback from the principal, myself, teachers, about where they're at. I think the mental health of our students has always been a priority for us, and I think the mental health of our staff should also be a priority. Students first, obviously, that's our #1 priority, but I think that would be a good compromise for right now, and look at it at the January 11th meeting, no, that's it. Yeah, 13th meeting, January 13th. that sound like a good compromise?
Yes, I guess if we don't take any action, if there's no motion, we can bring this up in January. Is there anyone that
So
feels?
technically, depending on what happens in our next
Yeah.
thing, it's gonna be a lot dependent on that, because this Friday's already scheduled for that.
Right,
So it'll only be one Friday.
right, it'd be next Friday.
Yeah.
And I think we're all in agreement that it wouldn't be absolutely necessary next Friday, because the next week is just 2.5 days. I hope we would be in agreement. Preparing for 2 days is different than preparing for 5.
Yeah.
It's still a lot depending on how
I
many
know.
kids if we go back.
I know. I'm just,
But I'm not in agreement. I would like to make the motion to, go Fridays off during virtual instruction for teacher preparation.
You mean virtual,
Yeah,
For the hybrid.
Yeah,
The hybrid.
it's not
Yeah.
virtual instruction, just instruction for the rest of the
Yeah.
year, correct, Melanie?
yeah, I would like, yeah,
For the rest of the school year?
for,
I think it would
until we
be-
revisit.
Until you no longer offer the remote learning
Yeah,
package, right? Or
That's what, I think that's what I asked, I think that's what you probably want.
Yeah.
yeah.
Say that again, how you want.
You're saying every Friday or?
I think we're gonna do every Friday while we offer virtual learning.
as long as there's remote learners.
Yeah,
Correct.
I'll second that motion.
Gil,
Yes.
Teasdale,
Now,
Ray,
no.
Ganell,
Yes.
Andrews,
yes.
Russell,
No.
Ewing,
Yes. Well, that motion carries. Good discussion. We certainly can revisit that in the future. Next is item E, which is consideration of an action on the possibility of continuation of virtual instruction from December 14, 2020 to December 23, 2020.
I'll just step in here based on our school district metrics, which I shared a website with all of you. You can look at it. We're at 7-day average of 0.00. I don't think it's a good idea to go virtual for the next 7.5 days. I think we need to be in person.
Everybody knows that I wanted us to be shut down through Christmas before. I'm different. I think we need to come back. I think I know it's only 7.5 days, but it's 7.5 important days.
I think we need to come back because my fear is after Christmas. So I think we need some time back.
Yeah, I think that's the next one. I think that's our.
You know what I mean?
Like-
And I hate to be that way, but I think we do need to sneak some time in quick.
I think it's only be 6.5 days now, given.
Well, yeah, you're right.
6.5 days. Like that. It'd only be
6.5 days.
That's all right.
Next
Still better
Friday.
than,
Still better than 0.
Yeah. I'm gonna make the motion that we come back on Monday and that we are, in person, through the 23rd, other than I don't need it.
Yeah.
It's up to the 23rd.
I second that motion.
Teasdale,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Ganell,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Ewing,
Yes.
Gil,
Yes.
Motion carries. Next is item F, which is consideration of an action on the possibility of pivoting to virtual instruction for a period of time beginning on January 4th, 2021 as a precaution.
And we left it so that we didn't limit ourselves to a week or 2 weeks or 3 days or whatever. Hindsight's 2020. So anybody can look at what we did after Thanksgiving and say, what'd you do that for? There weren't that many cases. But I think it was the right thing to do for everybody's psyche. And I think this is too. I think New Year's especially is going to be difficult for many to stay away. And like everything, every case we've had in this building, it hasn't been student to student. It's been adult to student. And so if adults go out and see their friends on New Year's Eve and bring that to their students, now we're going to have those students coming in and out, and it's just not conducive to a good learning environment. I think a precautionary thing like we did after Thanksgiving is the right thing to do. Are we gonna catch flack about it? Certainly. But I think it's the right thing to do for our students and staff and community.
I think there was a lot of adherence to the recommendations to stay with your at-home residents for Thanksgiving. But my fear is also that Christmas is a whole different game because people will say, we're ready to gather, we're gonna get our family together, it's Christmas. So I think there'll be more potential exposure along with what you're saying with New Year's.
I don't know that I have the same optimism that Thanksgiving was as people in their bubble as we hoped, but, because I've heard stories, but, I think Christmas is gonna be a whole different ballgame. I think it's gonna be, people are like, screw this, I need to get together with my family.
I think the calendar happens to be good for us in this year because we wouldn't be scheduled to come back until the 4th. So I would, if it's okay, I'm gonna make a motion that we take that first week after the break as virtual, but we're back that next month. One week.
So the 11th?
The 11th.
I would, is there any way to consider, or discussion, I guess, after that, depending on the reported numbers, because I think we should always be cognizant of
Always call
what.
us.
We can always
can
call
always
a
call a
special meeting
special
if we
meeting.
feel it's not. a
I
good
just want to
idea.
add that since it
When
wasn't
are we
mentioned, so I want to
The
mention that.
11th,
The
the
11th.
I mean, we'll be virtual the first week, we'll be in school, just not.
Right,
in
right,
person
back
in
on the
school.
4th, right?
Except for the Friday.
You come back virtually on the 4th.
Yeah.
4th through the 7th. Although would we be in school on the 8th? If we would have school on the 8th, if there's no hybrid now.
All right. Well, we've been taking
Is
those
that-
Fridays.
No, that's fine, I just have to. Yeah, I think that the 1 week makes the most sense, given the new CDC guidelines, I'm sure we'll be mentioning here shortly. I think it fits into that 10-day window, 11-day window, that if symptoms are coming up, once again, I'm not a doctor, but I think it sets us up for success. We can certainly meet the week of the 6th if there is outbreaks. I think I mentioned to Mr. Learman, I was feeling really good about the county, and then we had that one blip, that one day that was like 18, and then it was back down into really respectable numbers for our county. And so I do think that, although I agree with Jacinda, you never know what everybody does, I do think at least more people in our communities as a county are taking it more seriously than they were before. And so I think by doing on the 11th, that makes the most sense.
I don't know if it was posted today or not, but I did have a conversation with the health department. And counties having technical issues with their internet. But between yesterday and today, they had 8 new cases.
Yeah.
Just so you know, it was in the same.
Yeah,
I think everyone had internet issues the past couple of weeks.
Any other conversation on this? Yeah. Seeing none, you can roll it.
Ray,
Yes.
Canal,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Euling,
Yes,
Gill,
Yes.
Teasdale,
Yes.
that motion carries. Next, we're up to G, which is consideration of the action on following the new CDC guidance for determining the quarantine.
So I shared with you a document, it's actually, you can go to the website and find this about the new guidelines, the 10 and 7 days. I had sat in on a meeting with Julie at Lafayette County Health. We do an open forum every Wednesday morning. I've been in discussions with the superintendents from Cuba City, Southwestern, and Benton on a weekly basis. And I was really excited about the 7 and 10 day thing until all of the fine print came out. Basically, in a nutshell, there's no advantage to change to the 7 and 10 days. Let me just say the 10-day one, if you look at, there's a graph on there, it's the second page, and it shows you the infection rate basically after 10 days. And there's very little difference between 10 and 14 days, but I mean, we could use that 10 days, but it stipulates that you have to guarantee, first they have to self-monitor for symptoms, and you have to guarantee social distancing. I don't think we can guarantee social distancing in our school. Just because our rooms are small, our kids are close together, we can do our best, but boy, if it ever came back and they took a tape measure to it, it's gonna be pretty tough. And then I think as far as athletes or extracurriculars, you can't use the 10 days at all.
No, you can't, WI doesn't allow you to do it.
Because you gotta be socially distanced for those 4 days anyway. Well, how do you practice? You can't be near anybody. And so everybody I've talked to, I actually talked to Aaron Olson at Cuba City this morning. They actually were told originally, and that's the other part about all this. What you hear one day changes the next day. You know, we thought we were doing the right thing and then came back and, well, no, we didn't give you all the information, or they didn't know it, or whatever. So we had to eat a little crow and then do it. But at first, Cuba City was under the impression from this new directive that their student athletes could get a negative test within 48 hours of the 7th day, and then they would be declared eligible to participate. Well, that's not the way it works. They still have to follow the quarantining rules. So there's no advantage to the 7 or 10 days. And both counties, Grant and Lafayette, have said they're not going to adopt these. They're going with the 14 days as the gold standard. And it's going to be 14 days anyway.
Right.
In the 7 or 10.
How do you play basketball 6 feet apart?
There's some kids that do it.
I think the boys and the girls team both have a few that do it that way.
And not because they're running away.
And I will say that there are some schools in Dane County who are trying to do that, at least for a practice standpoint.
Yeah.
And we're playing Belleville later this year, and they were practicing based on that. It's not ideal. And I don't think, it makes no advance, and I didn't look at it from an athletic standpoint. I look at it from our kids. You know, I know Lauren and I had since where our kids were in quarantine for the 8th grade. You know, and I don't think either one of our kids enjoyed that in any capacity. I would look to try to get them back, but if that's what the requirements are, that's not, well, I mean, I don't agree with the gold standard theory, but that's where we're at right now. And so it makes no sense for us to adopt something that provides us with no additional flexibility. I just think that we just move on.
So no action on that. And next is H, consideration of an action on a recommendation from the Building and Grounds Committee choosing an engineering company for stormwater management project.
So the information from our meeting was not provided because the packet went on Monday afternoon. We had the meeting Monday evening at 5:45. And we had, the committee discussed the 6 proposals that we received for our stormwater management project. And of those 6 proposals, they ranged from a high of $13,250 to a low of $3,500. It should be noted that some of the engineering firms did not follow the letter of the proposal, and they included some things that, you know, maybe shouldn't have been included. But after discussion, and I can let Nathan take over, he's the chair of the committee. The committee has a recommendation for the board.
We had 4 different ones out of the 6 that we thought were all reputable, all fit the need of what it was, and those ones ranged from about 3,500 to about 6,400-ish. And ultimately, we did end up recommending the cheapest one, but not because they were the cheapest one. It was because there was a combination of price, but also familiarity. I thought that the other 3, I think the committee, we thought any of the 4 would be fine. And we thought about submitting all 4 to you, but we ultimately felt that it was necessary for us to say, this is where we're at. Ultimately, we're recommending to go with Delta 3. I think that we're getting a benefit for the, because they're already here in the community so often, so that was part of the price, because there was a significant difference between them and number 2, 3, and 4. But ultimately, because they're here with their contract with the city, I think is ultimately why we got the price that we got. But given the familiarity with the group, that's why that was the recommendation.
And they're all delivering basically the same.
They're all delivering the same thing. Now, I will agree with Mr. Lerman. There was a few of them who gave us more information than we asked for, which may be good, but we didn't consider any of that because that's not what we asked for. And we didn't want to go back through to the 2 or 3 who didn't do that, so we didn't consider any of that. So we haven't got into construction or anything like that. We're not considering any of that. All we did is simply look at whatever, apples to apples. And in that regard, that's what we went with. But we thought that there was 4 out of the 6 that were very appetizing, could have done a great job in any capacity. And given the price difference and then also the familiarity with the school, or the city, I'm sorry, that's why we're recommending that. If you don't pass that, we're happy to go back and bring back all the proposals to you at the next meeting.
And just to reiterate, the Delta 3 proposal came in at $3,500.
And if there's no questions, I'll make the motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Canal,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Ewing,
Yes.
Gill,
Yes.
Teasdale,
Yes.
Ray,
Abstain.
Motion carries. Now we're up to I, which is consideration of the esports.
So I talked to you about the positive news, and esports was one of those items. I received an email from Dave Weigel, athletic director at Scales Mountain School District. And if you recall, when we did the discussion about esports in October, one of the things that was mentioned was maybe co-op tryout. He reached out to me. Scales Mountain is having a meeting on the 21st, wondering if that would be a possibility. That's why I asked Eugene to put this on the agenda. I reached out to Benton, did not get a reply. So at this point, we're just asking for the possibility of co-op, since we have all the tryouts with those districts. There's not a lot of team practices, but what they practice, they can do in their own buildings. But the thought is, I talked to Brooks Duff Bowers, our director of our esports. The thought is that some of his numbers will be going down in the spring, especially with all the spring sports. And he just wants to make sure that there's enough for a team, because you have to have so many members to even have competition. That's why our JV has lost so many competitions, because the other teams haven't had enough players. It seems to be gaining steam, and there's a lot of excitement in Scales Mountain. So, I mean, I'm all for it. It doesn't, we can split the costs, and if we do that.
And it's the same kids that.
It is, they're all, yeah.
I have no problem making a motion that we will co-op and or try out, though you don't have to come back to us again.
Agreed.
If those Benton and Scales and or Scales Mountain prefer to do it.
I'll second that.
Fine with me.
Yeah, for the most part, practices have been remote.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids can practice from home, so
Yeah.
it's the ideal
Yep.
pandemic sport.
But you would agree there's some excitement around it.
Oh my God.
That's good.
Like,
I do have one question about it though, is, if we have students right now that are dually participating in winter sport basketball, is there, any parameters that say, that they need to go to a practice for one versus the other, or?
Well, we use spring sports parameters, as they have to choose their primary sport.
Choose a primary.
And then I had a coach approach me about it. I would bet that, and we talked about the fact that there will be a couple times where the esports will have a competition the night before a game. And I have a real problem with that if I'm preparing for a game the next night, but yet one of my starters, or even just one of my subs, or even just a teammate is not going to be there, I would tell the coach not to play him. Because your primary sport is, in this case, basketball. That's the only sport we have going on right now. And that athlete would have to choose, and then just, let them suit up, but they don't have no guarantee
Is
of
that
any
something
time.
that's been communicated with the AD? Because I know that it is a real issue, and I believe all of our coaching staff is aware of.
I communicated with the head coach that approached me.
Well, would that have been the case, say, if somebody ran cross country the day before a volleyball game and then volleyball practice, would they not be allowed to play?
Well, I don't think it's not allowed to play, and I think that there's a huge difference between JV and varsity. Would I be correct, Mr. Russell?
What I could say is there is a significant difference between JV and varsity, first of all. I can undoubtedly tell you that. My understanding as a coach is that it is treated just like the spring. So you have a primary sport, you have a secondary sport. And then it's one thing if you don't miss your primary sports practice for anything other than competition. And you go from there. I don't have any players currently that have that issue right now. but that is my understanding of how it was, and I don't have it, if there's a competition, so for example, same thing that we do it for FA or for band or choir, the same concept, is that I can't punish a kid if they're going to compete. It's different than a practice, it's the competition. If it's a competition, I can't do it, we can't, this is kind of fair for it. But you cannot, fault a kid or hold a kid back for going to a competition. For a practice, it's a different story. Does that make sense?
And I've talked to Mr. Doug Bowers about it too. I had a conversation about how it works for him. And he said, he's like, as long as I know a kid's going to another practice, okay, like, he's like, it is what it is, you know, and you can practice at any time. So, you know, that's one of the big things is because they can do it from home and, you know, all that kind of stuff, the practice stuff, it's the games that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of the practices are happening at like 9 o'clock at night.
And
Because
I think-
that's when they're gaming anyway.
Yeah.
And I think Wednesday's the biggest issue because our practice time is so short, for our teams, our athletic.
Yeah, we have to be done at 6, so just so everyone remembers, we have to be, whether they have a religion or not, our plan is, our requirement is to be done by 6:15.
You
And so
can't schedule.
at least I think from the boys' side, that's where the biggest problem.
Thursday night games.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yep.
because
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We are up to personnel, and item A is consideration of adjourning closed session pursuant to 19.85 1C, which permits convening in closed session for the purpose of considering the employment and compensation of public employees, job candidates for the purposes in items 9A1 and 2, 9A, 3A, and C. Motion?
So move.
Second. I was reading here.
Scannell,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Yuli,
Yes.
Gill,
Yes.
Tisdale,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.